In this lesson, you'll learn how to adjust hues and saturation and lightness in an image, and also show you how to adjust color of something selectively in a photo without even using selections. So go ahead and open up some of the support files like boston.jpg, and there's a couple ways to do this, but first I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, rather than doing Adjustment Layer, just so you can see it it's a little bit larger dialog box, as opposed to going to the other one. And there's a couple settings we have here. There's Hue, Saturation, and Lightness. And by default, we're affecting all of the areas of color. So all the different hues, reds, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, and magentas. And so if you just click and drag left and right, you'll see it interact with the original color. And so it's just kind of changing this really strange colors if you go left and right. Now, if you go to saturation, just leave hue at 0, which is the default, and then go to saturation. You can make the colors pop out a bit more. And if you go too far, it really overdoes it, obviously, but you can make it pop out a bit. Toggle the preview to see the before and after. And you can also go to lightness and make it a little bit lighter. Eventually go to completely white, completely dark. So you can adjust that as well to try to improve the photo. And there's one other option where you hit colorize. It just makes it one hue, and then you can just click and drag this left and right, and you'll see the specific hue that it'll turn it to. And I'm going to open up another photo here. This is kelly.jpg from the support files. It's a portrait photo, and this time instead of going to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, let's just do an adjustment layer. So click on the bottom of the Layers panel and go to Hue Saturation. And you'll see it looks a little bit different, but a lot of the same options are here. So there's hue, you can see there, saturation, make it pop out a bit more, lightness, and so on, and colorize. And so if you take the hue and see how it can just interact with the original, and one quick tip, if you hold on a Control on the PC or Command on the Mac, you can actually, if you hover over down here, click and drag, and that moves just the color range left or right. And then as you move that, it'll just interact a little bit differently. Now, the reason we would want to do an adjustment layer, besides adding a mask and it's a live effect so we can double click and redo it again, I'm just gonna delete that and just create another one. And what's pretty neat about this is you can selectively adjust hues with this little button here. So if you click it, and then you'll hover over here, and let's just say we wanted the green to pop out more, you can click it and click left and right, and you'll see the saturation goes up. Wait, I'll just exaggerate so you can see. So it can go up to plus 100, or you can make it grayscale. Now if you hold on to Control on the PC or Command on the Mac and go left and right, that actually brings the hue. You can change the hue of the specific area as well. So for example, let's just say her hair color here. If I click on that first, click, drag left and right, that just adjusts the saturation. But if I hold Control, click and drag, now I can actually change the color of that specific area that I originally clicked. So if that's not clear, let me just do another one here with a landscape photo. This is zoom and navigation beach.jpg from the support files. So if you click on the bottom layers panel, add new adjustment layer, let's go to Hue Saturation. Now one other thing here, if you do some kind of effect and you want to go back to the original, the default, you can click this little icon on the bottom there, and that's pretty useful. But let's just say we wanted the blue in this landscape photo to pop out more. Well, we can click right here, and you can hover over it. It tells you if you have tooltips turned on. Click and drag in the image to modify saturation, basically just that hue range. And then Control click or Command click on the Mac to modify the hue of that specific area. So this blue area here, click and drag left and right. You'll make it more saturated, including the ocean there. And then left, make it more of a grayscale. So if you go a little bit over to the right, make that really pop out more. What's cool is this comes with a mask. So if you're on the mask and you can paint in some black, let's just say we wanted the sky to pop out a lot, but not the ocean, we can use a soft edge brush here, click and drag, and we mask out that effect so it shows through to the original layer. And we can click this effect here. It's a live effect, so we can go back to it and click this little icon here. And now let's just say this sand here, we wanted to change the color of it. So I'm going to hold down Control, click and drag, and let's just go over to way over there. Alright, see how it's kind of changing the hue a little bit? And you can see down at the bottom, see the range? You can affect that Let's just saturate that area there. I'll just exaggerate so you can see. Alright, so obviously we don't want to keep it like that, and obviously I don't want that effect. But I'm just showing you what this does. But one really cool use for the hue saturation is to selectively adjust color. So I'm going to delete this top layer here. So I just have an image. This isn't from the support files, but it's a stock photo. But you can open up any image that you just want to change the color of, but selectively, so certain areas. So you could use new layers and just paint on top and change the layer blending mode of that new layer above it. That's one way to do it. So for example, if I do a new layer, and let's just choose kind of a bluish color. Well, the background doesn't matter, but so for the foreground, let's just say bluish. And if I click and drag over there, obviously that's just covering it up, right? Just covering it up. And then I change the blending mode, though, of this top new layer that just has that brush on it to something else like multiply, or screen, or overlay, or color. And it's going to change, you know, and I can keep coloring on here, right? It keeps the texture of the original layer below it, right? So I'd want to mix selections to do that a little bit more accurately. But obviously, that's the effect. You could add a mask and paint in, for example, if you click on the bottom layers panel, adds a little mask there. Then it would actually erase out. If you messed up, you could paint white in, and it will bring back that color, right? So that's one way to adjust the hue. Another way, let's just say we had this image here. I'm going to press Control-J on the PC or Command-J on the Mac. That'll just allow us to work on a duplicated layer. And let's just say I was using the polygonal lasso tool and I made a selection. And I'm just going around this. And for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to just do this top part. As well as, I'm going to hold Shift to add to, maybe just this part over here. Just to make a quick selection. We could use a quick selection tool, but this has a bunch of straight lines, so it should be fine. I would obviously zoom in more using Control or Command plus or minus as I work, if I was making this actual selection with the polygonal lasso tool. But just to give you an idea, so those two areas are selected. And what you could do is go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and then you can change the hue there, or you can hit Colorize, and then you'll know specifically what color it would be. It would actually match this little slider up here. So let's just say you wanted to make it something like that, and make it more saturated, you know, whatever, maybe a bluish. Alright, and then if it was too strong, because we were working on a new layer that was duplicated, we can bring the opacity down a little bit, just adjust that as needed. But another way to do that without having to make a selection, and I talked about that at the beginning of this lesson, this is another way to adjust the hue selectively without having to make a selection at all. So what you want to do is create a new adjustment layer, the bottom of the layers panel, and go to Hue Saturation. And instead of doing a selection first, what we can do up here where it says Master, just change that to the color that you want to change. So let's just change the reds. Alright, I'll pull this over here to the side. And you can make just the reds pop out, like so, and just bring the saturation up. Or you can adjust the hue, like so. You can hit Colorize as well. The problem, however, is when we choose Colorize, you can see up here, it's defaulted to Master. It's just changing everything. So I'm going to uncheck Colorize, bring that back to reds. And now I'm just going to experiment here and try to get it to kind of a bluish, or you could go the other way, make it green, either way. And so then we've got our effect. The problem, however, is that you can see right there that some parts of the inside, like maybe the stick shift, but also the steering wheel, definitely change colors as well. We don't want that. So the great thing is that this adjustment layer comes with its own mask. So set the foreground color to black, choose a nice soft edge brush, and just click and drag this out here. Alright, and then this stick shift, it didn't really change that too much. Let me paint some white in, bring some of that back. Yeah, it did change it, but we painted black too far. So if I paint black too far in, let's just say this far, how do I bring that back in? So the effect, remember, just paint in white, how to bring that mask back in there. So wherever it's black, it'll show through to the original, just as if we had the icon here selected. So you can toggle that and see the before and after, and see if we need to change anywhere else, but that's pretty good for this effect. So that's how you change hue, saturation, and lightness overall in a photo, or selectively, either by clicking and dragging using the one tool to emphasize certain colors, or by using this effect where we can adjust certain hues selectively.